Okay, so this the man here that can give you all the information?
Hey, how's it going? How's it going?
2 years ago at a state prison west of Miami, 37-year-old Tristin Murphy killed himself in a most violent manner.
Not a pretty scene.
No?
No. This is the first time I ever seen this. I chopped his head off.
Was it finally accidental or not?
It wasn't accidental.
Okay.
He meant to do it.
He meant to do it.
He was cranking it up, and the sergeant was telling him, hey, put it down, and he went and got it. And
Okay, with the chainsaw.
With the chainsaw, right.
Okay.
I saw the guy trying to turn on the chainsaw, and once he turned it on, he grabbed it up to his neck and he flared it, and moved it from side to side.
And then began to actually apply pressure to mask the blood. He set the saw down, walked over, sat down, and bled out.
Diagnosed with schizophrenia as well as a documented history of attempting suicide, Tristan had only been at the state prison for 2 months before his death.
I honestly don't know how he made it through physical stuff.
Adult antisocial behavior, psychotic disorder, and psychotic disorder with delusions.
So wait a minute, this guy's an inmate and he had access to a chainsaw?
The crime that sent him to prison? Driving his pickup truck into a pond next to a county jail. That seems like a cry for help for me. Does it to you?
I honestly don't know what he was thinking at that point, but yeah, you can look at it as maybe it was a cry for help.
The charge filed against him was littering more than 500 pounds.
Yeah, well,
it's a littering charge. He was charged with littering more than 500 pounds, which in Florida is a third-degree felony.
So he was basically incarcerated because he was mentally ill, and the sentence was basically a death sentence for him. And it shouldn't have been that way. I mean, we've got to have better alternatives in our community and in our society. I mean, we're America, we should be able to do better for people, for the most vulnerable in our society. It's just so wrong.
He's transferred to the state prison on July 15, 2021. In 2 months, he kills himself.
No, I didn't know that.
Within days of Tristan's death, CBS News Miami launched what became a 2-year investigation into his case. Was that a critical moment in this case in terms of what should have been done to help Tristan going forward? How can you be so certain that the Department of Corrections didn't fail Tristin Murphy? And along the way, we uncovered how Florida's courts, jails, and prisons are collapsing under the weight of an ever-growing mentally ill population.
You could tell the judge knew that Tristan was not competent, and he did not want to incarcerate Tristan, but he had no other option.
Mr. Murphy, I don't know if you understand what's going on here today, but you're charged with criminal offenses. Do you understand that?
It wasn't fair to him to have to put that on his plate, that he knows he condemned a kid to death for driving a truck in a pond. Jesus Christ, what's with our society?
Why should the public care about this?
Because we could all be next. It could be a loved one that's next, and it's the right way to deal with people as opposed to criminalizing mental health.
Do you think something's going to happen?
I'm hopeful, but I'm not optimistic. It's a hard thing to say, but I'm just being real about it.
Nothing you've told me, unfortunately, is shocking or surprising. I'm probably shocked there probably aren't 10 more stories like this.
We are imperiling public safety. We're not improving it. And so if you want to improve public safety, you want to provide real justice, you want to spend these tax dollars more effectively, you want to help people recover, you have to change what we're doing.
With the help of his mother and father, CBS Miami gained unprecedented access to Tristan's prison and medical records.
We're still trying to unpack what happened, trying to get information. The fight to get records has been ridiculous.
They've circled their wagons very well.
Theirs is a fight for answers.
Did anybody care? Was he shown any compassion anywhere along the way? I think what broke my heart the most was the long period of time that he was incarcerated in an isolation cell without any treatment.
He was just in there with his mind, and his mind was sick. And, think how bad
how horrible it would be to only have the voices in your head.
Bury your son by the 5th in South County, Florida, or we'll trust your entire family. Mom, they're not kidding around.
I know,
Mom.
Tristan, I know.
They just put him in a box.
Tucked him away. It was convenient for them, I'm sure.
They stick him in a cubby hole and warehouse him because they don't want to deal with it.
When Tristan was born, I just remember being so overwhelmed with love for him, and I could hold him all day. Just never wanted to put him down. He just smiled all the time.
Hi, Tristan. How are you this morning?
Tristan had the blondest hair and baby blue eyes.
Hi, boo-boos.
People would stop me and comment about how white his hair was.
Could you look at the camera? What are you about to do here today?
Do the airplane.
You ready?
Missile launcher's ready.
Jumping! This is a first time experience!
Run, Tristan, run!
He said if it was a real game, he would have won.
Just ran in the house and said, Mom, take the training wheels off. And then he said, let go. And he went all by himself. What a big boy.
That's good. Good job, Tristan.
He was a very good student, very, very bright child, really gifted academically in a lot of ways.
Particularly in math.
Particularly in math. He was brilliant in math.
Today, I'm going to be introducing on how to make baklava.
He kind of started to struggle when he was in about 8th grade. We had him tested to see if there were any learning disabilities or anything, and they determined he had a visual motor integration skill problem. So that's kind of when Tristan started struggling in his life, really in 8th grade.
Tristan would drop out of high school and start down a path of working odd jobs, including landscaping and tree trimming.
Tristan's always been a really hard worker.
Great work ethic.
But he also developed a problem with drugs and had several run-ins with the law. He had his first child, Cody, when he was 23, was married at 26, and had his second son, Colton, in 2015 when he was 31. He was not only raising his 2 sons, but his wife, Deborah, had custody of 3 girls from an earlier marriage. I sort of want to start the timeline that brings us to now in 2017 after the hurricane.
Yep.
Is that a fair place to
That's
really
when,
sort of start there?
That's really when we noticed a big change in Tristan.
He would call and say that he heard that there were some listening devices in his attic and he needed to go up in his attic and get them out, or that somebody had put a monitoring device on his truck. And at one point he told me that the little troll figurines in Punta Gorda had cameras in them and were recording where he was going. We tried so desperately at that time to get him to go see a doctor.
You know, he's working jobs that are a little above minimum wage, no health insurance. And so, you know, he wouldn't go to a doctor because that was all a couple $100 more than what he made paycheck to paycheck.
Cindy and Dennis weren't the only ones concerned by what was happening inside Tristan and Deborah's home. The Florida Department of Children and Families started their own investigation.
Interviewed the oldest first and went down the line and decided to remove them all from the home and place them with us.
If Tristan or Debbie wanted to see their kids, they had to arrange a supervised visit with the state. Nevertheless, on April 21st, 2018, they showed up at the house.
Debbie was hollering at him, and I was telling him to leave, and it got physical. He smacked me around a few times.
And I called the police.
The police walked in.
And they took him outside, and then they talked to us, and we told him that he had mental health issues. What we saw after that, when we peeked out, when I walked out, was Tristan being held down on the ground, has his body crushed into a bed of rocks with a deputy on his back, and them struggling to try to get him under control, and we repeatedly heard him being tased.
According to the sheriff's report by one of the deputies, after falling to the ground, Tristan was cursing and swinging his fist at each deputy that was near his upper body. Tristan looked at me and kicked me in the knee and screamed, "Get off me." The report states Tristan was tased multiple times, while another deputy struck him with a baton. One of the deputies said Tristan bit him on the hand during the struggle.
And next thing we knew, he was charged with five felonies.
5 counts of felony.
For resisting arrest, for having knocked a taser out of somebody's hand.
While at the hospital, Tristan apologized to deputies, stating, "I blacked out and I have no idea what happened." In many ways, Tristan's interaction with police is a common story.
Well, the reality of it is that there's way too many people among us that have mental health issues. The people who are called upon to deal with it most often are the absolutely least qualified to handle the situations.
Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri is the former president of the Florida Sheriff's Association.
You get little to no training in the police academy, and if you're lucky, you went to a 40-hour course called CIT, or Crisis Intervention Team Training. And that's better than nothing, and it's a start to making sure the cops identify what are mental health issues, but you still can't have a cop at 2 o'clock in the morning doing a differential diagnosis to figure out what's wrong with these people, trying to get them into services, and then trying to case manage them.
Miami-Dade Judge Steve Leifman, however, says it is possible to train officers to better deal with the mentally ill.
That it's a much better outcome for everybody to de-escalate the situation and help the person get access to treatment, and that did not happen here.
In 2021, the Florida legislature created a special commission to deal with the mental health crisis. The chair of the commission, appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis, Charlotte County Sheriff Bill Prumell.
When you're dealing with somebody who is in crisis or is dealing with a serious mental illness, you could be barking out all the orders you want, and it's not that they're ignoring you, is they can't hear you. It's not registering, it's not going through. So we as law enforcement officers is, okay, you're disobeying my orders, we take it to the next level, and then the next level, and things can go bad. But with the proper training, they know if it's safe to do so, they can take that step back and say, okay, what am I dealing with here, and what's the best route to go?
So why didn't Tristan get treated that way by the officers?
And when you're talking about domestic violence, we don't really have too much of a choice when it comes to arrest. It's really no different than somebody who's suffering from some sort of mental disorder and they commit a homicide. They're going to go to jail.
And that is exactly where Tristan went. He was booked into the Charlotte County Jail, where he grew increasingly psychotic.
We had a couple of video chats with him, but we just couldn't get anywhere with him. He wouldn't sit down. He was agitated and fidgeting. He told me that he had been found on the floor of his cell and had had gallbladder surgery because he had been bleeding internally.
All fabrication.
All fabricated. I mean, he was just not with us mentally at all, I don't think, during that period of time.
Case number 2018-898, State of Florida versus Tristin Murphy. Have both the state and the defense seen the report by Dr. Kling?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
After sitting in the jail for 5 months, Tristan was seen by a psychologist.
Dr. Kling opined that the defendant suffers from a mental disorder, and based on that disorder, the defendant is unable to adequately appreciate the charges, the consequences, or the legal process. Based on the reports and the testimony presented, the defendant is incompetent to proceed due to the defendant's mental illness.
In Florida, when a judge determines you are incompetent to proceed, you are sent to one of 6 psychiatric hospitals across the state.
Competency restoration, quote unquote, puts my head on fire. It is the biggest waste of taxpayer money. It has the worst outcomes in the world, does nothing to get anybody treated, and does more to keep the person in the system than get him out of the system.
Is the goal of restoring someone to competency just to be able to get them level enough to stand trial, or is it to really try to treat the underlying issue and get them better for the long term?
It almost has nothing to do with treatment. There's 2 prongs to incompetency. A, you have to be able to assist in your own defense, and B, you have to understand the nature and consequences of the charge. And so when you go to a competency restoration facility, they are focused on those 2 prongs. They do it by trying to get you to take some treatment, and then they put you through a series of classes to help you understand how to get through a plea. And what we found several years ago, which was really startling, is that for about 70% of the people that we spend all this money on, 3 things happen to them. The charges get dropped, they receive credit for time served, or they get probation, and they walk out of the courthouse without any access to treatment and right back to the street, and often getting rearrested within minutes of their arrest because they're still very sick.
Tristan was sent to the South Florida Evaluation and Treatment Center, a private, secure hospital that has a contract with the state to restore inmates to competency.
The first words he said to me was, "Mom, why am I here? They told me they brought me here so they could kill me, and not in a nice way."
Medical records from his time at the treatment center show he was given a variety of antipsychotic medications.
He was still at that point very delusional. He was talking about, people trying to hurt him. He's very confused about, everything that was going on in his life, wanting to come home, wanting to see his family and his sons, and crying that he was never going to see us again. He'd never see his sons. He was going to die. Just totally scared out of his mind.
Just before Christmas 2018, his parents were allowed to visit him at the hospital.
It was probably the most heartbreaking thing I've ever seen. He was probably 20 pounds lighter, and he shuffled in, bent over, looked like he was 50.
90. He looked like a little old man.
He looked like a little old man. He was all hunched over and shuffled in and sat down and stared off into nothingness.
He was rigid, and that's one of the things that the medication will do. Some of the side effects is it makes you look like you've got Parkinson's disease. I mean, he couldn't lift his hands. We got him a Coke, and he was like this, trying to drink a Coke. And we talked to him, verbally, he was asking the right questions. How are my sons? What's Cody doing? What's Colton doing? Is everything okay at home? He was getting out the questions, and we were giving him answers, but he couldn't move.
Shortly after the new year, the doctors at the hospital informed the court they believed Tristan was now competent to stand trial, and they sent him back to the Charlotte County Jail.
Tell me your name for the record.
Tristan Murphy.
Date of birth.
4/11/84.
So do you understand we're here on a competency situation where you've now been found competent to proceed?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
A few weeks later, he pled no contest to 5 felonies. He was given credit for time served and placed on 4 years of probation. When he was released, the judge did not require him to take his medication as a condition of his probation or require him to receive counseling or treatment. Was this a missed opportunity? Dr. Randy Otto is a professor of clinical psychology at Nova Southeastern University and the executive director of the American Board of Forensic Psychology. An expert on mental health law in Florida, CBS Miami asked Dr. Otto to review Tristan's medical records and court files. Wasn't that the critical moment to actually create a treatment plan that the court could have better supervised?
Well, judges don't create treatment plans, nor do probation officers. What a judge can do, of course, is once a treatment plan has been identified, require compliance with that treatment as a condition of probation.
Judge Leifman said Tristan's fate may have been sealed in that moment because Tristan was now on a track that would almost certainly lead him to be rearrested.
What we have found that works best is that we have a different screening system way before we even get to competency.
Leifman described the reforms he's instituted in Miami-Dade County and what likely would have happened if Tristan had been arrested there instead of Charlotte County.
You come through those jail doors, we've changed the screening tool at our jail. You're immediately screened to see if you have a serious mental illness.
Ever had a situation where you might be feeling anxious or hearing voices or anything like that?
If he had gone through our system, he probably never would have even gone through competency at all. And instead of focusing on restoring him, we do what you talked about. we focus on getting him treated on a longer term basis. And we focus on reintegrating him back to the community because that's where he would have gone anyway. And so he went down the typical route. You come in, you committed a crime, oh, you have a mental illness. Are you competent to stand trial? Let's send him to the competency restoration system. You know, let Florida spend 25, 30% of its entire adult mental health budget on this guy so that he can end up with basically what he ended up with, credit time served in probation and back to the community without access to the kind of treatment he needed.
And
that
no real
wouldn't happen here.
supervision.
None.
And no mental health supervision.
Because it's not set up that way.
A review of court records show his probation officer only wrote one report to the court during Tristan's probation, seemingly more interested in the beer he found in Tristan's refrigerator and in the back of his pickup truck than checking to see if Tristan was taking the medication to control his schizophrenia.
If you're going to put people with mental illnesses on probation, you need specially trained probation officers that know the mental health system, that help them access treatment in the mental health system. Not, are you going for a job? Are you, showing up to your probation officer? Are you,
Are you failing your urine test?
Correct. That's what they're doing. They're not, are you taking your medication? Are you going to your appointments? Are you in your group therapy? Are you participating in your group therapy? And what we've done in this state and in this country is we have created a system designed to fail, and it fails perfectly. And then we blame the poor soul who has the mental illness when we never gave them the opportunity to recover to begin with.
In the beginning, according to Cindy and Dennis, Tristan was taking his meds and appeared to be doing well.
We really felt like he was really, really on an even kill, and was until about October. Yeah. And then started going downhill again. Started with, he thought his phone was hacked. Then he thought somebody had put a kill switch on his truck. Yep. He was hearing voices in the ceiling again. If we could have gotten him the mental health treatment, and if he felt like he could have afforded to get mental health care and the counseling and stuff and go to doctors and get it adjusted, that maybe would have been improved. But again, he didn't have any medical insurance. I wanted to talk to psychiatrists so that we could figure out how to handle that. How can we get him to take his medication? And we couldn't get an appointment. Tristan could. He'd have to do that on his own. We couldn't make any headway with that. We really just didn't know what to do.
So what are we doing here today, sir? I'm giving a sworn statement for an incident that I saw. I noticed a vehicle was actually floating inside of the lake that's out front of the jail.
Tristan had driven his pickup truck to the jail, turned towards the lake, climbed out of his truck, and rolled it into the pond before walking away.
I proceeded down the road to see who the individual was, and I personally know this individual as Tristin Murphy. He's an inmate that's been in our jail several times.
Deputies arrested him and charged him with littering more than 500 pounds, a third-degree felony in Florida.
Who in their right mind would drive their truck in a pond in front of the jail where everybody can see it? I mean, clearly, to me, it was a cry for help.
Why isn't the alarm going off that this poor guy is really sick? Get him hospitalized, get him treated. I mean, that would be the normal response. But again, he's on probation, so we have to follow that track. We have to apply that criminal justice model, and it's then going to lead to him going to prison. I mean, fail, ultimate failure, he passes. And no one stood up except his poor parents, screaming that he needs help. And everybody else was just trying to ram him through the system so that they can move on to their next case and not do what needs to be done, which is to help him get access to adequate treatment.
You can look at it that way, or you can look at somebody who was upset at us because we've arrested him.
Promell defended the decision by his deputies to arrest him for littering.
I understand the reason they went with that is because he put the truck within the pond where our fish farm is, so all those chemicals potentially poisoned our fish farm, which feeds the inmates in the jail.
Tristan would be held for 576 days, almost all of that time in solitary confinement at the Charlotte County Jail, where his paranoia and schizophrenia worsened.
Tristan? Tristan, I want to talk to you. Tristan? Can I talk to you?
Yeah, Mom. I can hear everything you say, Mom. But I'm just telling you, they are being here, Mom. I'm trying to protect folks.
That just did not sound like even your voice.
Cindy started receiving disturbing calls from Tristan in the jail. He spoke in a bizarre series of voices that Tristan explained were coming through a chip in his head.
Mom, I can hear the military in my mind from the chip, okay?
Okay.
They're passing messages out of my mouth. Mom, I love you, Mom. I have to be buried by the 5th.
You know, the whole crux of it was that he wanted us to help him die. I mean, he wanted to be buried in Charlotte County within 3 days. He believed that if he wasn't buried in 3 days, that somebody was going to come and capture us and rape us and torture us, Dennis, myself, our kids. He just wanted me to help him find a way to die. I'm worried for you.
I'm worried for my whole family, Mom. I'm trying to protect my family. They gave me an option. They gave us the option.
He was begging me to help him die, help end his life. I was frantic. I was terrified that night.
Whenever she tried to calm him down, the military man, or one of the other characters he had created in his mind, would begin screaming at her.
They're talking through your head right now and saying all that?
Does that sound like me, Mom? Cindy, Sue Murphy, Esquire. This is us in the United States Navy. Your son has an outlaw chip. We were talking out his mouth. We gave him a special scan from the United States Navy. Son made the President of the United States of America, just like Bill Clinton.
Can I talk to you, Tristan?
Yeah.
Where are you at? Are you in your cell?
I'm in my cell, by myself. I have a special scan, and they're talking
Okay.
out my mouth.
Has anybody checked on you? Is there anybody, guards or anybody around you that's listening to what's going on?
He's schizophrenic. He's off his meds. What do you think a person who spends 500 days in an isolation cell, what do you think happens to their mind during that time?
Well, I know it. The worst place you can put somebody who's suffering from a mental disorder is within the jail. But you yourself even said it. He was refusing all treatment, refusing all medications. So at that point...
But he's not in his right mind.
I understand that. So what are you going to do? You're going to...
But 500 days in your jail, and I'm not saying you have to provide treatment for him. You're not equipped to provide treatment for him during that time.
But we do provide treatment. Not the best treatment, but the treatment that we're able to provide.
Mr. Murphy, can you hear me okay? Okay, just for the record, he's affirmatively nodding his head.
10 months after being arrested on the littering charge, Tristan appeared before a judge in Charlotte County.
Mr. Murphy, I don't know if you understand what's going on here today, but you're charged with criminal offenses. Do you understand that? Okay, again, affirmative head nod. And Mr. Murphy, it's tough for me to proceed as the presiding judge unless I can be confident that you know what you're doing. And your refusal to speak with the doctor puts me in a very difficult position.
For the second time in 2 years, a judge decided Tristan was not mentally fit to go to trial.
I do find that Mr. Murphy is incompetent to proceed within the meaning of the statute, and will move to issue an order involuntarily committing him to the state hospital for restoration.
In his order, the judge noted, there is substantial likelihood that in the near future the defendant will inflict serious bodily harm on himself or others. Despite the judge's order, Tristan would remain in solitary confinement at the jail for another 6 months. In February, Tristan stopped eating, refused to shower, and became increasingly disruptive. Jailers took him to a nearby crisis center, but the psychiatrist did not have access to his medical records and was unaware he was previously diagnosed with schizophrenia and paranoia.
There's clearly problems with communication and ensuring that the individual providing services to Mr. Murphy have the full picture and a clear picture.
Is that common?
All too common.
According to Tristan's medical record, the psychiatrist states that Tristan's behavior revolves around his antisocial personality disorder and not so much a psychosis.
My reading of the note is the psychiatrist is not appreciating that there are symptoms of severe and persistent mental illness, the schizophrenia or the psychosis, and simply sees Mr. Murphy as an antisocial person. He's bad, he's not mad.
Bad but not mad. So he was once again sent back to the jail and placed in an isolation cell. By the time Tristan is sent to the South Florida Evaluation and Treatment Center, 440 days had passed since he drove his truck into the pond, and 171 days since a judge determined he was mentally incompetent.
Way too long.
Documents obtained by CBS News Miami reveal just how common this was. At the time Tristan was in the Charlotte County Jail, he was one of 640 prisoners who were sitting in county jails across the state on a waiting list for treatment, despite having been deemed mentally incompetent to stand trial.
We don't have space. So, unfortunately, many of these people, after they're adjudicated incompetent to proceed, they wait and languish in jail. This, by the way, is an issue that a number of states are struggling with. In the professional literature, it's been referred to as the competence crisis.
59 days after arriving at the South Florida Evaluation and Treatment Center, Tristan was once again deemed competent to stand trial and transferred back to the county jail.
Tristin Murphy.
6 days after his return to Charlotte County, he was back in court.
Tell me your name and date of birth, please.
Tristan David Murphy, 4/11/84.
Okay, you doing okay today, Mr. Murphy?
I'm doing good, sir.
All right, you know why we're here today?
Yes, sir, for sentencing.
Tristan's public defender, his 5th public defender in 2 years, told him he should just plead no contest to the littering charge, according to his parents, and agree to a prison term of 3 years.
Do you read, write, and understand the English language?
Yes, sir.
As part of the sentencing hearing, the prosecutor on the case began asking Tristan a series of questions.
How far did you go in school?
We got a high school equivalency.
Sir, have you ever been diagnosed with a mental health issue or illness?
No, sir. No, sir.
Silence filled the courtroom as Tristan's answer appeared to catch everyone by surprise. The prosecutor pressed on.
So when you went to the Southwest Florida Treatment Center, that wasn't for any sort of mental health issue?
No, sir, it was not. It was to be found competent in court to proceed.
All right. While you were there, were you given a diagnosis by anybody?
No, sir. I just had to be found competent.
A few minutes later, the judge ended the hearing.
I think what we're going to do is we're not going to go forward right now. I'm going to give you some more time to discuss this with your lawyer.
3 weeks later, Tristan was once again in court, and everyone seemed determined to get this case closed.
As to case 19-21-32F, that is an adjudication of guilt as to the felony littering charge with the 36 months DOC.
Have you been able to understand everything thus far that's gone on here this afternoon?
Yes, sir.
Are you currently suffering from any mental health illnesses?
No, no, sir.
You have had some mental health illness in the past, though, correct, sir?
I can't really specify.
Are you of clear mind right now, sir?
Yes, sir.
You understood everything that I've been asking you thus far?
Yes, sir.
Be adjudicated guilty to felony littering, sentenced to 36 months, Florida Department of Corrections, concurrent with the sentence just imposed. You remain in the custody of the Charlotte County Sheriff for transportation to the Florida Department of Corrections. Good luck to you, sir.
For the families who see how the criminal justice system treats their mentally ill loved ones, it can be an incredibly lonely experience.
Well, my name is Hema Pena, and I'm a home care for my son, Christopher Rodriguez. I had to take an early retirement due to his mental illness and the severity of it.
Hema Pena's son, Christopher Rodriguez, was diagnosed with schizophrenia when he was 14.
He starts medicating himself with the street drugs.
And because he's self-medicating, he's taking drugs, he gets in trouble with the law.
Correct. And it's a revolving door. In and out, in and out.
In December 2008, Christopher, who was 22 at the time, was arrested for armed robbery and assault in Polk County, Florida. He remained in the county jail for more than 4 years and, like Tristan, was kept in solitary confinement because of his mental illness.
When they brought my son, we told the officers there, oh, that's not my son. He says, yeah, that's Rodriguez. Christopher was unrecognizable. He had lost tremendous amount of weight. He had a huge beard. He had long nails, like he was completely, totally abandoned in a dump.
So you didn't even recognize him?
I didn't recognize my own son, no.
Court records show he was found incompetent to stand trial 3 times after his arrest, in 2009, 2011, and 2012. After each of the findings of incompetence, Christopher would be sent to a hospital for a few months, returned to the jail, where his condition would then worsen, causing the courts to find him incompetent all over again.
It's devastating how the judicial system fails to the mentally ill in the United States. Dogs are treated better than humans in the United States.
In 2013, Christopher pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 10 years in prison, where his mother claims he was routinely abused.
He deteriorated so bad, continuously. That means lack of care.
When he completed his 10-year sentence in December 2018, he was so mentally unbalanced that rather than release him, the state of Florida went to court to have him committed to a psychiatric facility.
He was there for 2.5 years almost.
2.5 years.
Correct.
That's when you made the decision.
I had to quit my job.
Quit your job.
To take care of Chris.
It is hard to have a conversation with Christopher. He is often unintelligible, and what he does say often makes little sense.
When they teleport me in an orbit.
Okay.
I don't know, something that teleports you and you cast and you teleport you here, there. The thing is, it wasn't 10 years. It was over Brazilian abuse.
This is what the system has done to my son.
I know, it's just like,
This is what you see that the system has done to him. No treatment for 10 years. The hospitals are horrible. This is the end results of the judicial system of the United States, and this is the end results of the lack of treatment and care for the mentally ill. Prisons do not rehabilitate mental illness. It enhances and it makes worse.
The only thing that comes through clearly is how he feels about his mother. Talk to me about your mom. Your mom fights for you, doesn't she?
Yeah. She fights for me. Stop crying, Mom. Come on. No, stop crying.
She worries for you.
Yeah, I know.
It's okay. You don't have to apologize.
But I just wanted you to see. This is his everyday life. Too many years in confinement. He only comes out like to smoke or to eat, then goes right back. He doesn't like to be around people. Too many years, I think. But this is the best, probably hard to accept, because my son could have been more functional to society and to himself.
If he had been treated earlier.
If he would have been treated earlier and not being tortured and abused and criminalized by the system that is supposed to rehabilitate.
Now her days are filled with taking care of her son and making sure he stays on his medication.
These are your nights, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have your AMs and your PMs, and then you have midday pills, right? That's it. Good boy. So proud of you. You're my hero. You're free, and you're home, and you're loved.
Love.
Love. The unconditional love.
Like many new arrivals at the state prison system, the first stop for Tristan was the South Florida Reception Center.
When you come into the prison system, they classify you in a bunch of ways, given your needs and things like that. and an S grade represents your mental health status. So his S grade was S3.
S3 is the designation for inmates diagnosed with a mental illness with moderate impairment who are determined to need psychotropic medication.
What I don't know is how he ended up, with the S grade of 3 and some of these identified symptoms.
Those identified symptoms Dr. Otto refers to are seen here, where they acknowledge Tristan suffered from delusions, psychosis, and paranoia. Nevertheless, on the very next page is the question, are there any job or housing restrictions? And the box marked no is checked.
Well, he called me the day that he got there. So I asked him about his medication, and he said that he wasn't on it yet, that he went to the infirmary, he said, to get it, and they said that they couldn't give him his medication until they got his records from Charlotte County.
Prison medical records show he did not receive any of his prescribed medications for at least 8 days. The handwritten notes in his psychiatric file reveal that on July 22nd, patient is actively psychotic now, and that he was speaking to himself and rambling about a man with no skin.
And I fully understand why he went downhill, because, without it, he was just lost.
Every time a prisoner is given any drug, even an aspirin, it is supposed to be documented in what is known as a medication administration record, commonly referred to as MARS. Tristan's records show that after the initial 8-day lapse, he started receiving his medication regularly, but that appeared to stop when he was transferred from the main portion of the prison complex to the South Unit. We showed Dr. Otto this question in Tristan's transfer order to the South Unit. Is the patient currently receiving medications? And the box checked is no.
But it does indicate that he's receiving health care, so I'm at a loss to explain that.
The last day, according to that MARS, that he received his medication was on September 11th.
That's right.
And if he refused to take his medication, there's supposed to be a notation of that.
You would note that, correct.
Did you find any notation of that?
No.
When Rick Scott became governor in 2011, he ordered the Florida Department of Corrections to privatize inmate health care, arguing it would save the state money. Do you think that that privatizing that medical contract ended up with better results?
No.
Mark Inch is the former secretary of the Florida Department of Corrections. He oversaw the agency when Tristan killed himself. So we used to be better.
We used to be better.
Prior to the privatization.
Yes.
And then after privatization, we actually had worse outcomes when it came to suicide.
Yeah, the outcomes, rose up to match national averages.
CBS Miami has learned that within 4 months of Tristan's death, 2 other inmates, Anthony Diaz and James Bailey, also killed themselves at the South Florida Reception Center. What do you think the quality of health care that inmates are receiving currently is?
I would say it's somewhere between below average and average.
Since 2018, Centurion of Florida has been paid more than $1.5 billion to provide that health care to the state's 80,000 inmates. Former State Senator Brandis said he has pushed for greater accountability and reform, but had trouble convincing his legislative colleagues to care.
To date, they believe, for the most part, they believe everything is just fine, and that the prison system does what its job is, which is keep people housed inside the walls.
But for those living and working behind those walls, there is little reason for optimism. We took a closer look at the inspections conducted at the South Florida Reception Center and found they have repeatedly been cited for a host of issues, including failing to provide mentally ill prisoners with the medications they are supposed to receive. On the day Tristin Murphy killed himself, the medical staff had failed to provide him his medication for nearly a week, and as a result, he became increasingly erratic. In a series of handwritten statements taken by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement immediately after Tristan's suicide, inmates noted it was obvious to them Tristan was unstable. He was cussing and talking to himself for days. He is a paranoid schizophrenic. He stayed in my dorm and he would always talk to himself every day, and he seemed like he had problems mentally. Tried to speak with inmate Murphy shortly before incident, and he was acting very strange and angry. We are in the dorm together, and he has been very unusual. But if the inmates knew he was becoming more and more volatile, the staff seemed oblivious, and around 8 a.m., Tristan and nearly 30 other inmates were taken on a work detail.
Is that normal for the inmates to use the chainsaw?
Yes.
Like for landscape?
Yes. They always use everything. We have all kinds of tools: chainsaws, machetes, weed eaters,
These
blowers.
are trustees that we have that come out here.
They've been classified. Yeah, they've been classified the next level before they go out on the street so they can work. So they've already been classified that they can come out here, do some landscape.
CBS Miami obtained body camera video from the Miami-Dade police officers who were called to the prison after Tristan killed himself. The video provides the clearest understanding of what happened that morning.
Has he ever made any threats?
I don't really know the guy, that's why I asked.
Jose Rambola was the correction officer overseeing Tristan and the work detail at the tool shed.
I had two guys. I asked them, do you guys know how to use a chainsaw? Because they told me they had business, whatever. One guy said, yeah, I worked on trees, cutting trees. So I said, okay, well, show me you can start the chainsaw. And then maybe, I'll believe you, whatever.
It was Tristan who volunteered.
He goes, he cranks it like 2 times. And then by the 3rd time, I was like, hey, get off of there. Let me see if the other guy knows. Because if he doesn't know how to turn it on, then I'm going to get the other guy.
Right.
He stood up, and I said, hey, put it down. He kept cranking, he cranked it like one more time, got it started, revved it up, and then just put it to his neck.
The Miami-Dade officers spoke to several of the inmates who told a similar story.
Justin, can you just tell me a little bit about what you saw?
All right. We was asked to fire the saw up because me and I guess him, we do tree work and stuff.
Right.
He's over there trying to start it.
Mm-hmm.
I turned to this man and I said, hey, I don't want to be near him with the saw. He's like, hey, turn around, and the dude has a thing on his neck.
After he finishes, watch as the prison supervisor tries to have a private word with him.
Hey.
48?
The supervisor had earlier speculated to one of the Miami-Dade cops that Tristan may have been depressed over his love life.
Hold on, he's probably missing his girlfriend.
It's not clear what the supervisor said this time, but whatever it was, the inmate quickly shot it down.
No, he's got to be a paranoid schizophrenic.
He's ending 68.
68.
You know what I mean? Talking to himself.
What's the ID?
The supervisor quickly dismissed him, but the next inmate says the same thing.
Murphy's his name. I know because I see him in line stuff. I distance myself from him. I feel uneasy. He talks himself, pops his jaw a lot. I honestly don't know how he made it through physical stuff, but the officer didn't know that.
Others provided similar written statements. I've witnessed some questionable actions from Mr. Murphy from day one of coming into the S unit. Starting just this morning, he was awake since 4 a.m. talking to himself, cursing, etc. It was the most traumatizing thing I've ever seen. It was like a horror movie in real life. I never thought I would experience something like that. I will say the inmate was in my dorm and heard him talking to himself multiple times, so something was obviously wrong with him. After I saw what happened, I ran away in fear.
Was he on medication or no?
Sorry.
Trying to get his mental. That's what they were saying.
Was he on medication?
I heard that someone was trying to get his mental.
We're separated in different entities. Okay. Our medical staff deal with medical, our psych deal with psych, and our classification deals with if they're able to work. So I just do security.
Okay, no problem.
And I've been
Who
doing
has
it a
his
little while.
medical history, like mental and stuff?
Medical.
Hey, we got his medical file.
Yeah, we need him.
Okay, but he was on psych meds.
He was.
Yes.
So he was taken. Okay. So all we had was schizophrenia. Was there anything else that they had told us before?
Let me see.
Schizo.
That's it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just need to know what he suffered from and the medication.
Adult antisocial behavior, psychotic disorder, and psychotic disorder with delusions.
All right, his mother, phone number.
Okay.
His mother and Cynthia Murphy, right? Murphy.
So I'm sitting at my desk working from home and I get this phone call and I look at it and it's Miami, and it didn't even occur to me that it would be about Tristan. So when I punched the button and answered the phone call, it was the chaplain calling to tell me that Tristan had been found dead that morning And just, I couldn't talk. I gave the phone to Dennis. I don't know what he told you.
He didn't go into any of the discussion of how it happened, but he said they're doing an investigation, an internal investigation.
How long a conversation is this? How long a call is this?
Oh.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
They were told they would be able to speak to the prison warden for more answers, but they say he never called, and when they tried calling him, they say they got nowhere.
I mean, we just could not get through to anybody. We could not get a live person. And so we finally gave up and called the coroner's office. We learned from the coroner.
We learned more
how
from
he died.
their office than anybody.
We learned how he died from them. That was really rough. I mean, I was just so furious at that moment. Like, how could somebody who with a mental health condition be given access to a chainsaw? It makes no sense. I mean, it is just so wrong.
Did the system fail Tristin Murphy? Secretary Inch retired from the Department of Corrections a few months after Tristan's suicide.
So, do I think FTC failed? I do not. But, you know, that's just too short of an answer for that. You know, when I think of the different periods in his life as he worked with his mental illness and how he acted out when not under medication and how he became just as involved in the different things, it does make you wish for a different path for him.
How can you be so certain that the Department of Corrections didn't fail Tristin Murphy?
Because I have confidence in the system processes and then the people. It goes back to, you know, how do you build trust?
Despite the IG's findings, internal emails obtained by CBS Miami reveal serious lapses. In this email, dated November 9, 2021, there is an account of what happened attributed to Centurion Psychological Services Director, Dr. Larissa Palmer. She admits Tristan should have been seen by a psychiatrist and other counselors 2 weeks after arriving on July 15th, but was not due to staff shortages. When asked if anyone checked with the mental health staff before assigning Tristan to a detail involving a chainsaw, she reported that mental health is usually not consulted on inmate work details. Dr. Palmer also stated Tristan was scheduled to see both the psychiatric provider and the mental health professional on 9/16/21, the day of his death, but instead of sending him to counseling, he was taken out on the work detail. In August, I sat down for my final interview with Cindy and Dennis Murphy. In the 2 years since Tristan's death, we had spoken often, both on and off camera. Cindy is now 64 and Dennis just turned 70. At a time when they should be settling into a comfortable retirement, they have adopted and are now raising Tristan's 2 sons, Colton, who is 8, and Cody, who is about to turn 16.
I just recently had to tell Cody how he died. I mean, Cody knew. We told him soon after that he had committed suicide and that, but we didn't tell him how, but we felt he needed to know how he committed suicide, and that was really hard. And I told him, it just took his breath away. So yeah, it's been hard. You know, we're just trying to live life and move on and, you know, try to create a normal family life for them as much as we can now.
Sometimes when she is alone, she replays the phone calls Tristan made from the Charlotte County Jail in 2020.
Cindy, we'll come after you.
Tristan, I don't want to talk to these other people. Tristan,
Thank you for using GTL.
I love you.
I listen to them from time to time because I'm trying to understand what he was thinking.
She's also left to wonder what his final days and weeks in prison were like. Her last contact from Tristan was this email on August 9th, 2021. How are things going? Enjoyed the photos you sent. Please send more. How is Cody and Colton enjoying school? I'm doing good. Have no real complaints. Write me back. Hard getting on the phone. She wonders what happened to him after that email, especially after he was transferred to the South Unit and he stopped receiving his medication.
If Tristan had been a college kid and had gone off to college and committed suicide, I mean, one of the first things that I would have wanted to do was talk to his roommates and talk to his professors and talk to people around him who knew what was on his mind, and we can't do that.
We told them about the police body cam videos we had uncovered.
I would actually like to see this. If they get too hard, I'll stop.
Just hit the space bar.
Okay.
Okay?
I distance myself from him. I feel uneasy. Talks himself, pops his jaw a lot. I honestly don't know how he made it through physical and stuff, but the officer did that.
They knew. There were people in that facility that knew, that should have put red flags all around him. And they didn't. Can't believe it. Oh. Should not have happened. Should not have happened. It was in his records, prior suicide attempts, mental illness.
We also shared with them some of our interviews, including our talk with Charlotte County Sheriff Bill Promell.
I mean, he came across as sincere, but I don't think he knows what's going on in his own jail. You know, if he thinks that they're being treated, they're not.
And we also played for them our interview with the former secretary of the Florida Department of Corrections.
If I were the head of that system, I would be banging on doors, saying, what the hell went wrong here? How could this have happened?
When we talked before, you said you were angry at the police, you were angry at the courts, you were angry with the judges, the prosecutors, and then you also said, and I'm also angry at Tristan.
Yeah.
Are you still angry at Tristan?
Not so much, because, I mean, Tristan made a lot of choices during his life that were the wrong choices that maybe led him down the road that he was on, but, you know, in the end, this is not the life that he would have chosen for himself if he were mentally well, and I can't blame him for that, for his mind not working the way he wanted it to work. I mean, it just, you know, when Tristan was incarcerated, every single night I went to bed, I prayed that the only voices he would hear that night when he was in prison was the voice of God. I prayed that every night, and so yeah, the voices are gone. He's not hearing those voices anymore, but hopefully he's there hearing the voice of God. I believe he is. Yeah.
Last thing I just wanted to ask you, how are you guys doing?
This is Tristan, the day he learned how to ride his bike without training wheels. He said, "This is gonna be easy, Mom," and I thought, no way, Jose, but it was. He's 4 years old and just a couple months. Still having trouble getting started.